There were 14 Grass-type Pokemon introduced in the 7th generation, with 9 of them being considered competitive. Yes, I'm including Eviolite Dartrix in that. This is going to be interesting to see if any crazy Pokemon like the Kartana can really shake things up for a top 10 Grass-type Pokemon list, or if existing Pokemon like the Gourgeist and the Trevenant can now find a way onto the list as well. That by using Z-Forest Curse or Z-Trick or Treat, these Pokemon can gain a +1 to all of their stats, and will it be enough? Let's go into Pokemon Showdown and talk about the top 10 best Grass-type Pokemon, with number 10 being Tapu Bulu. So the biggest reason why Tapu Bulu makes it on the list is that it brings a grassy terrain, which also brings bonus damage to Grass-type moves, and that is going to be absolutely insane. Tapu Bulu has incredible one-hit KO potential on the Wood Hammer, so pretty much Wood Hammer, 120 base power, stab move, 130 attacking Pokemon, gaining all kinds of boosts with the grassy terrain as well, and you get to run like Adamant, max hit point investment, and it's just surprisingly bulky while putting down crazy amounts of damage. Now a little bit of healing from Grassy Surge just kind of helps out with the recoil, but also, surprisingly enough, Tapu Bulu does get access to the Horn Leech, so it does insane amount of damage with the Horn Leech as well, and finds healing on top of that. You can also use Bulk Up to gain even more stats, get tankier, or do more damage, and it can safely run a Meadow Plate. Now, the biggest issue with the Tapu Bulu is that it is fairly limited on its coverage. It can also tech in the Zen Headbutt, but for the most part, Tapu Bulu is just going to be a massive damage physical grass Pokemon, and the Grassy Surge does kind of combo out in doubles, or can have lasting effects in singles as well. Sometimes you can see a Terrain Extender on Tapu Bulu as well, and Zen Headbutt is nice coverage to have, because Poison-type Pokemon find a resist, and at least you can find super effective coverage. Super effective 130 attack Zen Headbutt will make the opponent feel some pain, and Tapu Bulu does get some good play overall. Number 9 on the list is going to be the Breloom. So Breloom, you never know where he's going to end up on a top Grass-type Pokemon list. It's always a scary Pokemon, you know, it just sits there and it has Spore. Spore is one of the most devastating moves in the game. 100% chance, put the opponent to sleep. That's just free, and it gets to abuse the opponent super hard. Also gets Technician. So now we have a 130 attacking Pokemon getting a boost and stab to priority on the Mach Punch. That can hit super, and that can KO, or it can also 2-hit KO, which means Focus Sash is going to be your best friend on the Breloom. And that just goes to even crazier territory. That if you're going up against a tanky Pokemon, well, Breloom, it actually speed invests. So that means higher base speed tanky Pokemon, Breloom still gets to outspeed them with Spore, and then add damage, just kind of make them feel really bad about themselves. And there's also a lot of tech around the Rock Tomb. So Rock Tomb makes it even harder to respond to the Breloom with, because okay, they outspeed you, and then you just hit them with a Rock Tomb, now they get slowed, and then Focus Sash, and then Spore, and all kind of things like that. If they have potential priority, you Spore, Rock Tomb, outspeed, and then it kind of doesn't matter after that. So Mach Punch is going to be big damage, but also gets access to the Bullet Seed, and each individual hit actually applies Technician and Stab. So even if you're hitting just 2 on the Bullet Seed, going to be good amounts of damage, but when you start hitting 3, 4, even 5, now we're fishing one-hit KOs while the opponent's asleep, while being slowed down, while also being able to eat a Mach Punch on the next Pokemon coming in. And if for some reason Breloom outspeeds and finds the KO and keep its Focus Sash intact, game's over. Like, you can't reliably switch into it unless you have a Grass-type Pokemon, in which case it just switches out and then goes into a tank that covers for it, and then Breloom is always a threat that can just pop up. Pretty much, it's always going to have that Focus Sash. You need to have some kind of entry hazard up, or else it's definitely going to take a target, maybe put one Pokemon to sleep, or even more. It's always scary, so it can find itself lower on the list in certain situations. For the most part, it is a frail Pokemon, can get outsped with priority against it as well, and that could be a bit of an issue for the Breloom, but it's just, you have to worry about it. If you see it, it's a threat. It can be abused, but at the same time, can also kind of walk all over your team as well. So, number 9 on the list. Number 8 on the list is going to be Whimsicott. So Whimsicott is a pretty scary Pokemon because of its Prankster ability. Now, it did get a little bit of a nerf because Dark types are now immune to Prankster in the 7th generation, and you just can't turn it off. So Whimsicott main form of just craziness is going to be off of Subseed. So what it wants to do is it wants to get behind a Substitute while also having Leech Seed available, and then it just stalls out forever. Now, it can also use a Taunt to shut down any opponent that's trying to gain stats or do any kind of setup, and it's a Prankster Taunt. So they just get completely shut down. Also, Whimsicott can sit on the Memento, so it did trade the nerf for a little bit of a buff as well. That Whimsicott, whenever there's an item clause, it kind of doesn't really know what to do. Put leftovers on it, but that's going to remove your leftovers option, and it doesn't really need an item to effectively subseed against a lot of Pokemon, that by the time they break through the sub and then Leech Seed and then they get ticked away or something, Whimsicott is actually able to hold in pretty well. But now, you can actually run the Darkinium Z. So, Darkinium Z is going to make it to where Memento lowers the attack, lowers the special attack of the opponent by 2, and then fully restores the hit points of a new Pokemon coming in. So that's going to be able to give Leech Seed pressure, as well as just absolute destruction and the potential pseudo-revival of a sweeping Pokemon on your team that might have had a little bit of an unfortunate break. Now it can come in, get set up against a weakened foe, and absolutely trash the opponent. And now it's time for number 7 on the list, and that is going to be the Lilligant. So Lilligant finding a little bit of a buff because Torkoal gets Drought now, and that's a very common just combo that you see in double battles, and it just works. Also, Lilligant is strong to begin with because it does get access. Once again, we are finding ourselves talking about Quiver Dance in this series, in this channel. Just one of the best moves ever. +1 special attack, +1 special defense, +1 speed. And when you're on a 110 special attack and 90 speed, that can get very scary for the opponent in a very short amount of time. You can run Modest Nature and then you'll still have enough speed to outspeed a lot. Go with the Timid Nature, feel really comfortable. Chlorophyll, that can do all kinds of really fun stuff. And then you just kind of run damage. So in singles, Lilligant is also going to have a nice little bit of an edge. So what it can do is it can run a Focus Sash, get a free Quiver Dance, and now we're in own tempo. Pokemon cannot be confused. And when you're in your own tempo, that means you are also free to go for a Petal Dance. And after that, you get Healing Wish. So if you're outspeeding the opponent, looking pretty dire, Healing Wish, you faint, replacement gets fully healed. So that also means full hit points and status removed. That's a lot. It can do a lot with that, and sometimes you can even see Lilligant tech in the Leaf Storm, that if it needs just that little bit of extra base power, it can find it, and then things get pretty scary from there. Also, Lilligant gets Sleep Powder, so if you want to take the risk on that sleep right there, you can definitely do that. Pretty much use your Focus Sash, put the opponent to sleep, go +1, maybe risk a +2 on the Quiver Dance, depending on their setup, and then Petal Dance until you die, or until your opponent's team has been completely wiped out. And then again, Lilligant now has ways of doing things in doubles because of Chlorophyll, more Drought Pokemon, more crazy combos, and it's just going to be pretty solid like that. Number 6 on the list is going to be Mega Sceptile. So Mega Sceptile will soon be available in Pokemon Sun and Moon, which is why to make sure I don't date this list super hard, I'm going to go and allow it. And now Mega Sceptile finally gets to be realized. It's a 145 special attack Pokemon with 145 on the base speed. That is a crazy amount of stats. So the Mega Evolution was there, but unfortunately, that first turn didn't really work out for Mega Sceptile too well until the 7th generation with the Mega Evolution buff. So now you can run Timid Nature and just instant access to 145 on the special attack. Like, the biggest issue about getting Lightning Rod going is that you just can't protect into a discharge. You have to eat the discharge at some point to get the +1, but on that Mega Evolution turn, you do have a chance of getting exploited unless you, like, protect into Mega, have a faster Scarf discharge Pokemon, or go one turn without the plus. It's hard to make it work on the Sceptile. But now, we don't have to worry about that. You can just Mega Evolve on that first turn, get some damage, find a way to get that +1, and then it is going to be absolutely instant right there, and maybe you can even use it for like future switch-ins depending on the Pokemon you're running. Tapu Koko is a very common and powerful Pokemon. It's going to be really interesting to see what happens in double battles when Tapu Koko can't just go for discharges or thunderbolts now that Sceptile is chilling on the field. And now we're into the top 5 Grass-type Pokemon. This is where we're going to see Kartana. So Kartana, definitely one of the better Pokemon introduced in the 7th generation. 109 on the base speed. While not the most insane, it's exactly what it needs. It outspeeds Pokemon like Garchomp, outspeeds all the Pokemon on the 100 base speed, and then it gets to completely abuse tanks with one of the highest attack stats that has ever been seen in Pokemon. And it's actually the highest attack for a non-mega, non-legendary Pokemon. That's filthy. It does have the Grass Steel, so it does get pretty shut down by Fire-type Pokemon, and that's kind of it. Like, it's not in the bottom 3 on this list, even though it does devastating things. And it's pretty ridiculous as well, because once it gets the first beast boost, the game is over. Even a resisted hit now threatens some KOs, and it's also playing with really good base power. Like, 90 base power on the Leaf Blade, solid. 181 attack, very solid. Very scary amounts of damage, and then beast boost, and then life just ends for everything in its way. Also gets access to the Smart Strike, so it does not check accuracy. The existence of Smart Strike and the existence of Kartana has single-handedly nerfed evasion to an impressive degree, which is, if anything, that's worth Kartana being on the list. It's now an anti-evasion Pokemon that also gets really good coverage from the Sacred Sword. So, Sacred Sword also ignores stat changes, so evasion stats, don't care, and also defensive stats, don't care. Works even better for the Kartana in that situation. Then you have a couple of other coverage options that you can run, like the Night Slash on Kartana, and this is about all you need. Now, you can still be walled out by a couple of defensive Pokemon. This isn't the most perfect coverage in the world, but that's fine. It shows that Kartana is actually well balanced, while also still being a pretty scary Pokemon. If a faster Pokemon comes in with Hidden Power Fire, yeah, Kartana kind of gets beaten up. Also with its low special defense and low hit point stat, anything faster than it is a real threat if it is hitting special. Sometimes it survives physical hits as well. So it's a fast-ish, devastating Pokemon that has made a splash in the 7th generation for sure. Number 4 on the list is going to be Amoonguss. Now, we already talked about Spore. Everyone knows how scary Spore can be as a move. Amoonguss gets access to the Spore while also getting access to the Regenerator ability. So I have a tank Pokemon that can reliably survive hits, and then put the opponent to sleep, and then switch out while the opponent's asleep into a more favorable position, and then gain all the health back that it took in damage. Also destroys Fairy-type Pokemon because it can use Sludge Bomb really well. It has built-in sustain on the Synthesis, and Giga Drain does surprising amounts of damage. Like, it's an 85 special attack. It's not good, but it also on a tanky, fully bulk-invested Pokemon, it'll find some damage, and that just adds to everything. That, you give it a Black Sludge, so that frees up a leftover slot as well. So if a tanky Pokemon uses the Black Sludge, can't get Toxic except from Salazzle, but that's just semantics right there, and then it heals a little off Giga Drain, Sludge Bombs Fairies into Oblivion, and it survives hits. Like, this is a special defense tank if it needs to be. Max out hit points, max out special defense, and now you can survive moves like a Hurricane, like an Ice Beam. Super effective, stab, powerful hits. Amoonguss survives it, Spore, Synthesis, Giga Drain, back up to full. They wake up, you can rinse and repeat, and eventually just stall things out. Or you can just kind of make some really good predictive plays, put multiple ones of your opponents to sleep, and if they try to switch into a Grass-type Pokemon, you have a lot of raid potential on that. Go into Fire-types, go into something that hits some Super, and you can just really mess up an opponent's day because Amoonguss is that safe. You regenerate her out when anything is bad, and then you're just going to be completely fine with the Amoonguss. Spore, Devastation, that's going to be it. So, Amoonguss, number 4 on the list, and this is pretty much where the Grass list is the same as last time, because number 3, we're going to bring in the Ferrothorn. So, Ferrothorn, always going to be around. You just can't give these stats to a Pokemon and not expect it to be one of the best things ever. So yeah, you can Leech Seed, Gyro Ball, works against fairies, and it's effectively the same thing, that you just set up, you sustain, you can protect, that's it. Like, yeah, let's talk about it. You can set up, you can sustain, you can protect to sustain even harder, and that's with the leftovers. So now, any damage your opponent does, you're going to be able to shrug off pretty well. And then Gyro Ball is absolutely massive because you're one of the slowest Pokemon ever. So you can just run anything that reduces speed. My recommendation is going to be that what you want is the Relax nature, plus defense, minus speed, max out hit point investment, go high into special defense. This will let you survive Fire-type moves. Even with a 4 times weakness, Ferrothorn is so tanky that it doesn't care. Get a Leech Seed, you can protect it up, you can get some health back, switch into something obvious. This is where you can pair with like Flash Fire or any kind of heavy resisting Pokemon, and the opponent still gets to feel it. Ferrothorn in that meantime got Stealth Rock set up, has Leech Seed on a sweeper, and then can get damage on Gyro Ball. It doesn't really have to worry about much. Grass-type Pokemon kind of suck because Leech Seed gets in the way, like you can't Leech Seed Grass-type Pokemon, and then Fire. They don't have that. Ferrothorn completely just takes them out. As for number 2 on the list, we have Megas Venusaur. Those stats, they're just too good. I mean, you do good damage, you have great tankiness, and you have the same thing that Amoonguss had, except with less weaknesses because of the thick fat, and only Sleep Powder for 75% accuracy, but you can afford to miss a Sleep Powder now and then, but get them to sleep anyways, and then that's where you can Synthesis. Awesome. That's where you can Leech Seed and get more sustain in. Awesome. And then you just go for massive damage on a Sludge Bomb. Oh, what's that? They bring in Grass-type Pokemon because you can't hit them with Leech Seed? Cool, you Sludge Bomb them into oblivion now. Max out hit points, you can go with a modest nature and some defensive split. Full defenses, go max, and that's just going to hit things neutrally for absurd amounts of damage. If you're running max hit points, max special attack, maybe consider the Giga Drain instead. Now you hit them with a big Giga Drain, you can run the modest nature, and you're getting a lot of health. You can Synthesis if it gets too low, you can Sleep Powder just to make their day suck, and Sludge Bomb, again, Fairy-type Pokemon just get to do nothing. Nothing gets to do anything to the Mega Venusaur is effectively how it feels. That you need really crazy flying or psychic type hits, maybe an overwhelming thing that can kind of beat through the thick fat, so like a fire type hit or an ice beam over time might be able to wear down the Venusaur sustain, and really just have to like calm on. You have to out set up a Venusaur while it's beating you down and still being a disgustingly tanky Pokemon. Mega Venusaur, it's reliable, good typing, it's got good everything, so it's going to be number 2 on the list, and number 1 on the list is going to bring us to the Superior, once again, Contrary Leaf Storm is good. Like, I would say that maybe in the 7th generation, Superior isn't feeling as strong as it used to, so maybe Venusaur Superior kind of tied for 1st and 2nd place no matter how you see it, and that's kind of it. Like, Leaf Storm on the Superior, Contrary, big damage, snowballs, while also being a fast Pokemon, 113 on the speed. It's kind of like Kartana, except even better, so now we're outspeeding the 110 base speed Pokemon. If you at any time finish off a low hit point opponent with the Leaf Storm, their day is pretty much done, or also if you're just tanky enough, you know, 75, 95, 95, going to be able to survive a lot of neutral hits or weak super effective hits, and then that just gives you more time to ramp up. Double Leaf Storm, now you're at +4, you land another one for a KO, you're at +6, anything slower than you is going to immediately die. Superior also does have a pretty fast taunt if it wants to run that, so a slower Pokemon trying to set up gets taunted, gets shut down just like that. Superior also has a little bit of coverage with a Dragon Pulse, so at least you can hit Grass and Poison type Pokemon for something on the neutral damage, and at +4, +6, stops mattering. Dragon Pulse starts finding some KOs, and then Superior can even do something like the Mirror Coat because we know that it survives moves. So say there's a Fairy type Pokemon, high special defense Pokemon. Sylveon's a good example. You survive the Hyper Voice, throw back a Mirror Coat. That's all it took. Superior can also run some Z moves now that it wants to, so you can go for like a Z Dragon Pulse, kind of patching that damage. Focus Sash, so you can survive pretty much anything. Citrus Berry to add to the bulk, and then Leaf Storm just obliterates everything. That this is the reason why it's number 1 on the list, is because it has the highest sweeping potential. If they have Pokemon that are heavily resisting you, you just bring Fire, bring Psychic, you know, you can just coverage to make it work with the Superior, and even if they switch, or even if something happens, you know, Superior is gaining stats. So, Leaf Storm into Z Dragon Pulse, even on a switch into a bulky Pokemon, it might not be enough for them to survive, and Superior can keep amping up on the damage right there. Leaf Storm again, and before you know it, the game is over. Superior can sweep pretty crazily. That's why it's number 1 on the list, and there you go. So, guys, enjoy the video. Top 10 best Grass-type Pokemon. Hope you all have a nice day. Thank you very much for watching.